As a military chaplain, one of my core responsibilities was leading retreats and programs around marriages and families and relationships. A lot of young soldiers get married early. So imagine for a moment a big group of service members and their spouses in hotels at nice locations, in civilian clothes. It was a treat. Whisked away for an entire weekend, all on the military's dime, just to have 3 days of programming led by their chaplain. Programs like 7 Habits for Highly Effective Families and Couples, Rock Solid Marriages, or the 5 Love Languages. Have folks heard of 5 Love Languages? It's good to check it out. It's good to know what our love language is to receive and also give. I digress. I loved it. Perhaps you can get that sense. I loved these retreats. There were serious breakthrough moments where couples went deep and real and raw and honest for the very first time. There were lots of tears, but there are even more hugs. It was one of my greatest joys to be in those spaces for those long weekends. One thing that I often heard quoted back to me, you may have noticed I used a lot of the same quotes over and over again. May our lives preach louder than our lips. Progress, not perfection. What's another one? Perfectly imperfect. I adore you, Julia and Dawn. Other ones. Messy love. Oh, thank you, Cesar. Surviving is thriving, Elsa. Thank you. Oh, wow, this is a sermon into itself. Say that again, Ginny. Life is lifey. Oh, my goodness. That was a chaplain colleague of mine that introduced me to that 5 years ago, and life just gets lifey, right? So hard. And we can do hard things. That's another one. I digress. Again, it's one of those days. One thing that I often heard quoted back to me came from a lesson about toxic patterns, like ongoing verbal fights. And when we find ourselves in that toxic verbal fight, how to notice, how to breathe, and make the choice to either call a warm and loving timeout, we need to pause, or shift the conversation in a way that's more productive and relational. One thing that we, the chaplains who were leading, were taught to say is that when couples are fighting, the only ones who are truly listening are the kids and the neighbors. Feel a little called in on that one, right? How true is that? I know we have all been there in the midst of a heated conversation. The first thing that stops is our ability to take in what the other person is saying. We are so focused on what? Being right, defending ourselves, making our point, scoring in the argument to win, also wound. Because I am right. That we are not listening. And most likely the other person isn't listening either. So no one is listening except the kids and the neighbors and the dog. The point is, it's not productive. It's a waste of energy. It causes great harm to the relationship, to the children, to the community. It causes harm to our hearts. Perhaps it relates to Proverbs 18:2. Fools find no pleasure in understanding, but delight in airing their own opinions. We all know these people as well. Perhaps we are these people as well at times. It's that key word in this passage from Proverbs, understanding. Understanding takes time. Paul Tillich, the great German American Christian existentialist and theologian, said, "The first duty of love is to listen." Let's just imagine that for a moment. The first duty of love is to listen, to slow down, to listen, to understand as a duty of love. I don't know about you, but there's something beautiful and generative about that. We all want love, to give love and to be loved. There is love in our lives always because we are born of love, and to love we return. As Adrienne Marie Brown, the activist and prophet of our time, in my opinion, wrote in her book, Emergent Strategy, when we are engaged in acts of love, we humans are at our best and most resilient. The love in romance that makes us want to be better people. The love of children that makes us change our whole lives to meet their needs. The love of family that makes us drop everything to take care of them. The love of community that makes us work tirelessly with broken hearts. Perhaps humans' core function is to love. Love leads us to observe in a much deeper way than any other emotion. If love were the central practice of a new generation of organizers and spiritual leaders, it would have a massive impact on what we consider organizing. If the goal is to increase the love rather than winning or dominating a constant opponent, I think we could actually imagine liberation from constant oppression. We would suddenly be seeing everything we do, everyone we meet, not through the tactical eyes of war, but through the eyes of love. We would see that there's no such thing as a blank canvas, an empty land, or a new idea, but everywhere is complex, ancient, fertile ground full of potential. We would organize with this perspective that there is wisdom and experience and amazing stories in communities we love. And instead of starting up with new ideas and organizations all the time, we would want to listen, to support, to collaborate, to merge, to grow through fusion, not competition. We would understand that the strength of our movement is in the strength of our relationships, which could only be measured by their depth. Scaling up would mean going deeper, getting more vulnerable and more empathetic. Now that we're feeling generous of heart and excited about how and what can be, I'll ask us to overlay these sentiments of centering love in all that we do with the ritual of stone and ashes we shared this morning. Both realities are true. Our hearts can break and we can love through it all at the same time. Our hearts can break for multiple people at the same time. And we can still love through it all at the same time. Listening. Our first duty in love is to listen to understand, to feel deeply, to love mightily, to forgive and forgive again, to ask for forgiveness and be forgiven again and again. I will share, as a combat veteran and a proud former service member myself, as a citizen of this country, I will say in my belief out of years of reflection that I find that military action in this day and age is the ultimate failure in diplomacy. We can and should do all that we can to keep lines of communication open and our ability to connect and understand with each other, even in the midst of historic and current complexity and multiple identities. To keep these in the forefront of our minds when bridging the great divides between people. That's you, that's me, that's us, that's this congregation, that's this community, that's this country, that's this entire world. If we are truly the ones that we have been waiting for, then it begins with us in this moment, in this very hour, to shift our ways of being in the world towards building understanding, to unite and heal people towards a more loving, selfless way of connecting. There's a third part of the ritual of stones and ashes this morning, with the laying of flowers and blossoms upon the sacred waters, holding the stones where the ashes have been strewn. Each blossom is a ritual gesture of intention, of beauty. These in particular, I think, came from Kent's garden. Where's Kent? These came from Kent's garden. Thank you, dear board president. Each blossom is a ritual gesture of intention towards loving and peace. For sowing seeds of justice to blossom into harmony, we cast these flowers upon the water, O source of peace. For seeing clearly the many colors of the rainbow of humanity and of the earth, we cast these flowers into the waters, O infinite source of peace. For calling us to life beyond our grieving, we cast these flowers into these waters, O blessed breathing spirit of the entire world. As we cast these flowers into these waters, transforming one, hear our plea. Just as water gives birth in life in the desert and gives hope to the wounded, so too may the power of the nurturing source of all renew our commitment to peace. We place this final flower in the name of that intention and hope. May it be so. It is right and fitting that our choir, led today by our wonderful guest conductor, thank you, Tom, and Gwen, our guest musician, thank you, Gwen, will close our service today with We Are One. It's an adaptation from the Shema to a proclamation of the oneness of humanity and to love all with all of our hearts. Choir, I invite you to come forward and bless us with this closing piece. May it be so.